So what good did it do? Students walked out yesterday in these United States and around the world. What good did it do? You know, I was just in Tanzania, Arusha, in January, and I see here that even a school in Tanzania walked out. How about this? Awesome. It is awesome. The International School of Tanganyika. Now, folks, let me just tell you this. This has, Tanzania, under any other ordinary circumstances, would be considered a third world country for the most part. We're not talking about a very big place here. It's a country, no less, and beautiful. I mean, that is where Kilimanjaro is, and what a lovely place it is, too, by the way. But under any estimates, I mean, it's not even on the world stage. It's considered basically an undeveloped country. However, the students walked out to say this: we are lucky to live in a country that is relatively civilian, gun-free. So it's not something our students have to think about. Says the teacher there and librarian, where is she? Courtney Park. But they are aware of the school shootings in the United States, and some understand the greater context of the NRA and its influence on politics. Would you have expected that?
No. Wow.
There was a walkout also in Israel.
Really?
Well, sure was. I was inspired to, this is one of the organizers, excuse me, I was inspired to organize the walkout because I watched the movement get born online, and it moved me. It touched me deeply to hear about this. And then there's this, ladies and gentlemen. Many of the students there in Parkland getting threats, even death threats. Very ugly things being said about them, and not just from some of their peers. Some of the other students who feel very adamant about, shall I say, I don't know what you call it, protection? Let me just explain this, because maybe some don't understand this. Now, I have the right to not keep and bear arms.
To not keep and bear arms.
Right. Now, I don't exercise that right. I keep and bear a whole lot of arms. However, it is the right of someone to not. Would you agree?
Yes.
In other words, because someone advocates not keeping and bearing arms, it's just as American as someone advocating keeping them. Just because you have a right doesn't mean you act upon it. Right? I mean, I have the right to curse someone out.
You also have the right to keep your mouth shut.
Absolutely. I have the right to remain silent. So, what you have here, ladies and gentlemen, when you see this kind of protest, are individuals who feel that their Second Amendment right trumps someone else's right to say, no, I'm against keeping and bearing arms. Now, granted, the Constitution protects this, and I don't doubt that some of this is going to end up in the courts at some time or another. The question is at what point does my rights take away yours? It's when you fire the weapon. You see, what the students understand very well, that no one would have been shot if there were no guns there. I get it. Ultimately, the wrongdoers are going to see where they don't have to walk into the school to take pop shots. And any given day, any given morning, I mean, you got a bus full, your captured audience right there, 45 strong on a bus. I mean, if in fact you just simply want to be a terrorist about it. Or you can just be just across, like in the case of the Nevada shooter. And look, hopefully I'm not giving anybody any great ideas. Or you can sit across the street with an AR-15, with a pump, stock, and wait till they go to the playground or maybe the cafeteria. There's no such thing as hardening schools. It's just idiotic. And it's just dumb. It's about time now for we who are gun owners to say that. The times that we had, ladies and gentlemen, where you didn't have this sort of thing, and don't get me wrong, it's not that it didn't happen ever, but it wasn't happening as frequently. It's happening as frequent now, ladies and gentlemen, primarily because of access to the kinds of tools, as in weapon, that someone can inflict this kind of damage. Harrison and Cleveland didn't want to leave the school. They want to go out in a blaze of glory.
Right.
I mean, the thought of killing someone who's already determined that they're going to die is not a deterrent. You understand what I'm saying to you? Do you get this? When you've got some individual who is on that mission from God, be it a terrorist from
McHenry?
well, be it a terrorist from McHenry or be it a terrorist from Mozambique, it's the same decision. Same decision. Same idiotic kind of loser. I'm gonna go out and take it out on a bunch of innocent individuals because, you know, my girlfriend left me and God wills it. I don't make a whole lot of this. I'm very pragmatic about it. You need to be too. They just, you know, oxyconservatives want to lead you to believe, oh, there is some kind of, you know, all you got to do is just follow the symptoms, and it's just bull. It really is. I didn't say it. I lived it. If you were watching me on Facebook, then that's no law against that.
Thank God.
Now you have this candidate here, Republican candidate, and how did I know it would be a Republican? And actually, they give Republicans a bad name. And you Republicans need to start saying that. Before I tell you this story, let me tell you what happened in Pennsylvania. Because now Donald John is saying, oh, yeah, well, you had a Democrat who stole his platform. And you know, I don't know where oxyconservatives get off thinking that somehow or another they are the only ones. Well, oxyconservatism represents as guns and prayer. And let me just tell you this, folks. If you believe that crap because you listen to oxyconservative talk radio, you are missing what America's all about. Going back to the days of the Whigs, or what was it, Teddy Roosevelt's party? He came up with the do-nothings or something like that. Pull it up. It was crazy. And he had to take the Republicans to task. The do-nothings, knuckleheads or something like that. And he won.
The Bull Moose Party.
The Bull Moose Party, yeah, the Bull Moose Party. And he won.
Yeah, he won.
Yeah, he did win. What you call yourself is not nearly as important as what you stand for. Republican, Democrats, liberal, conservatives is bull crap. They are those of us who are moderate, and there's always been moderate Americans in this country since we started. What do you call a person who is enslaved and come out of enslavement? A Republican? Hell no, you call him free. That's what you call him. So, I go back to this. You've got now a oxyconservative, I stopped short of saying Republican in Maine. She's a candidate for the House of Representatives there. She tweeted something regarding the students who are protesting and the organizers down in Parkland. Now you got to understand, these students only within a month came out of an environment that was a battle zone, over 150 shots in as little of 50 yards square. 150 shots, 50 yards square. Let me tell you something, folks. That's a rock. It really is. So what did she tweet? Let's see. First, her name. Where is she? Her name is. I don't see it underlined here. Gibson is. Oh, Gibson. That's her name. She's the only declared candidate for the 57th district. She told Maine Sun Journal it was not appropriate to single out Parkland students. Wait a minute. All right, Whitlock, we didn't do a very good job highlighting this for whatever reason. Here's the tweet. The GOP candidate for Maine 57th Congressional District, Lesley Gibson, tweeted this message. There is nothing about this skinhead lesbian that impresses me. So, so who's she talking about? This is one of the founders?
This is one of the students, so one of the survivors, Emma Gonzalez, who actually went and spoke at that town hall.
There is nothing about this skinhead lesbian that impresses me. So, how would she know she's a skinhead lesbian?
She's judging her. Well, Gonzalez has come out as bisexual. That's neither here nor there. But she's focusing on that as to take away from what she's talking about, obviously.
So, the little girl has the best of both worlds, and somehow or another, this person here in Maine...
well, obviously, this repressed Republican, as many of them are, is
but what
taking
does
her
skinhead have to do with it?
Well, the fact that she's got a buzz cut. Nice little low fade type thing.
Look good to me.
I like it.
Could have been on Wakanda.
True.
So, there's no recognition of the fact by this candidate, Lesley. This is a male?
Yeah, it's a guy named Lesley criticizing this student.
And how old is this guy? I don't see the age here on this. There's no regard whatsoever for the fact that this is a student, this is a child. It is a child. All of these are children. Came out of a battle zone, and I don't doubt there's going to be some PSD. I don't doubt that at all. I don't doubt that for a very, very long time, for these children, they're going to have to adjust to that. And that doesn't mean that they have any kind of mental problems. It just simply means, I can only imagine hearing that many shots and that kind of chaos and the reality of not knowing whether you're going to be next. That's tough. That's really tough. You know, all you got to do is be a hunter in the woods and hear a series of shots from people who are not part of your group in close proximity. It does, you know, it makes you duck.
Yeah.
Because bullets don't care where they go.
But they've never been in that environment.
Yeah, well.
You know, they've never been on the battlefield.
So this Lesley, but I don't doubt this Lesley now is one of those individuals who would actually send threats to these young people. And they're getting them fast and hard, I'm going to tell you. Congress is seeking to do everything short of doing something. We're going to harden the schools. So what, you're going to put it in a bulletproof school? You're going to make it into, what, the Pentagon? You do understand, ladies and gentlemen, at any given time, any person with a firearm could take a pot shot at anything. I mean, look, folks, I dare anybody to have this argument with me. I dare you. I really do. I tell you, I'm very pragmatic about it. If you have a guy, it is legal for Rip Daniels to walk down the street with his Marshberg or AR, whatever. You do understand that at that point, I could take a shot at anything. Now just think about it a minute or two. There's a reason why in the early 1930s and 40s, these United States and municipalities therein literally outlawed that. They literally did. And it was practical. A lot of it was because we were going through Jim Crow here in the South, and Negroes came back from World War I, World War II, and armed themselves for good reason, you see. The Klan was alive and well. You had 250,000 Klan marched in Washington, D.C. in the early 1920s. That combined with the flood, Mississippi floods, look, it made it very bad for the brothers. So the brothers, given any chance to get a gun, they got a gun. And so it was illegal for anyone to carry a gun that was not, quote-unquote, registered. No discussion from the NRA about that. No problemo. Because after all, it was all about control. And so now, turn the clock forward, here we are. And we've got those who have convinced you that somehow or another it is far more important, excuse me, to have more guns. Wrong. I'm going to say this, and I'll move on. If the students really want to get something done, all they got to do in the great state of Mississippi is arm themselves. Just go stand out in front of the club, actually in front of the Masonic Temple.
Yes.
Or in front of the mayor's office.
Yes.
Just maybe 3, 4, 5 strong.
Or the First Baptist Church, wherever the mayor goes to church.
Just walk around, and if by chance you stop, then just say, well, what are you doing with those guns? Well, we're just expressing our Second Amendment right. Nothing is more vehement or threatening than a 12 or 13-year-old, of which, of course, can carry a rifle in this great state. Nothing's more threatening than that. So why do you have that gun? Well, because that's my Second Amendment right.
Because I can.
How dumb can this be for our civilized society to even begin to approach? Well, if we don't have guns, then only law-abiding citizens, then only criminals are going to have guns. Well, you become a criminal when you decide to shoot your gun. Who wants to take that chance?
No thanks.
I dare you. Let's just have this argument. Now, if you're able to use some common sense behind this, then fine. I've got some evidence to demonstrate what I'm saying not very long ago, right here in this great country. And you got to understand, as an African American, I think it would have been far different in the days of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King if we were all armed.
Oh, yeah.
I really do. It proved very well for the Deacons for Defense in Bogalusa, Louisiana. I think things would have come to a screeching halt, to be quite frank, David Duke, had Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King not embraced the idea of defense. See, he felt nonviolence meant he had to be
unarmed.
Yes.
Well, at least
defenseless.
Yeah.
See, and there was a practice that doesn't say that you didn't have some people like Mr. Steptoe and others on the sideline, or people with Dr. Mason Bam on the sideline watching. But the reality is that you want to be like Mahatma Gandhi. You want to be. However, I do think that freedom would have come a lot quicker. I do, bro. Now I do. However, in a civilized society like, let's just say, Tanzania, or Zimbabwe, or Dakar, or in South Africa for that matter, you don't have these kinds of problems because there is very stern and very strict gun regulation as to when and where you have your firearm and how you have your firearm. Which, by the way, we used to have in this country, and you weren't having people running up in schools taking out 17 at a time or 26. There was a study done, according to the Scientific American. Relatively 3% of Americans own half of the country's firearms. Did you know that? I didn't know that. 3%.
Yep.
I guess we're in that 3%. Who fits the profile? White men without a lot of education who are afraid of black people. So this study says. You believe that? The study published today claims these are men who are anxious about their ability to protect their families, insecure about their place in the job market, and beset by racial fears. They tend to be less educated. For the most part, they don't appear to be religious. I didn't know that. Did you expect that?
Yeah, I did.
And suggests one study, faith seems to reduce their attachment to guns. In fact, stockpiling guns seems to be a symptom of a much deeper crisis in meaning and purpose in their lives. So this goes back, it kind of brings up this thing when Obama said clinging to their guns and their Bibles. The study claimed the people who are most emotionally and morally attached to their guns were 65% male and 78% Caucasian. Does that surprise you?
Not at all. No, not at all.
Well, if that is the case, then why so many Negroes getting killed in Chicago and New Orleans?
Well, see, these are the people who are answering the questions about the guns. They're not going to Chicago and New Orleans asking them about their guns.
Well, it's got to be, obviously.
And some of those guns aren't legally purchased.
Well, what does difference it make? It still shoot you.
Yeah, shoot you now.
Well, I'm just trying to understand. In other words, maybe those girls, no one went down to the Crips or the Bloods to get them.
They're not getting a survey from them. Excuse me, we'd like to ask you a few questions about your gun.
No comment.
Well, we see that you're strapped right there. We see the, what is that, 45? The 40 caliber. Okay. Sticking out of your pants there. You want to answer why you have it in the front?
Man, why you here? Why you down here, man?
Well, we're doing this survey about people and their relationships with their guns. noticed that you guys here in the rolling 40s have a lot of guns.
Who you with?
We just thought we'd come in.
Who you with? Who you with?
I'm
Who
with
you,
this,
who you 12? Are you 12?
I'm not 12.
You 12?
I'm 37, actually. But we'd like to ask you a couple questions, if that's okay, about your guns. No, you don't have to take
You
your gun
the popo?
out. You don't have to pull your gun out. That's okay. We see that you have it safely stowed there in the front of your pants. You can leave it there. We'll leave.
That's not
we'll
a
just
gun.
Go. We'll go.
I don't keep my gun in the front of my pants.
Oh, that's not a gun. Okay, well, congratulations. We got to go. We'll see you later.
You see why I do this show? I just never know what character is going to come up. I have no idea. Will you take that turtleneck off? Or is that a dickie? They still make dickies?
Yeah, you like it?
I didn't know you knew what a dickie was.
Yeah, it's from the Ezekiel Elliott collection.
Ezekiel Elliott, who is that?
NFL.
Do you know what a dickie is, Whitlock?
A dick?
You don't know what a dickie is?
It's a shirt, right?
Will you please show her your dickie?
Kinda.
It's not a. It's just a neck.
Like the front of the shirt.
It's a neck. It's what it
So it's
is.
the belly out.
Well, yeah, it's a neck. It's just you put it over. It's just a neck. Will someone call her?
Is that a shirt for women?
Get a lady. A lady should call her and tell her
Please
what a
help me out.
dickie is.
Call a
Because
friend.
look at the look on her face when I say the dickie. It was like, whoa, what?
Well, no, I don't think so. No.
78%. So,
Not shocking.
well, listen to this. This could explain why when African American men have a license to carry a weapon, they are still killed like Philando's Castile.
Exactly.
You believe this study?
Yeah.
Yes.
Not hard to believe.
Well, I just.
Except for the part about the religion. I'm not sure.
You think the more religious you are, the more you carry if you're
Well,
Caucasian?
In the South, yeah.
You think it's a fear thing, though? I can see.
Yeah.
The great push for having AR-15s was, in fact, motivated by such fears, especially when you begin to see more and more African Americans in higher ranks of local law enforcement and federal law enforcement. You're right. All right. Boy, it just never stops. So let me get this right. Donald John. He was in a fundraiser, and he admitted that he lied about the trade deficit with Canada.
Yeah. Well, he admitted that he didn't know.
Oh, he didn't know.
Facts
He
about
didn't lie. He just didn't know. He just uttered out that there was a trade deficit with Canada.
Yeah, he admitted he was talking out of his ass to Justin Trudeau, but he didn't admit that he was actually lying, because he doesn't do that.
Well, he admitted that he just said no, and so Trudeau said, no, there's no trade deficit. Well, let me hear this. So this was recorded in front of the fundraisers, and the president laughingly said, look, Trudeau didn't know that I didn't know. I didn't know. I just felt that it was, and so therefore we sent our guys out to find out for sure, and the guy came back. So let's play it. Let's hear it.
Trudeau came to see me. He's a good guy, Justin. He said, no, we have no trade deficit with you. We have none. Donald, please, a nice guy, good-looking guy comes in. Donald, we have no trade deficit. He's very proud because everybody else, was getting killed with it. So he's proud. I said, wrong, Justin, you do. I didn't even know.
I don't even know.
Gosh, I had no idea. I just said you're wrong.
All right, okay, all right, that's good. I don't even know. I didn't even know. I didn't know what it is. I just said it. I just decided to say it because it just sounds good. It helps my base. My base wants me to keep America great and protect America from all those who have shady deals, and it's better. It sounds better when I say that there's a trade deficit with everybody, including Canada and NAFTA and the whole works. I'm going to save you. I'm going to save you. You remember when Nazi Conservative Talk Radio came out and started talking about Obama being the savior? Well, they stopped short of saying that about this guy, and that's what this guy saying.
Yeah, right.
What a bunch that is. As it turns out, ladies and gentlemen, the Office of the United States Trade Representative says the United States has a trade surplus with Canada. So, Mr. President, maybe you need to, I guess you're going to fire somebody there with the United States Trade because they told the truth. I mean, that's typically what you do. The president is also threatening to withdraw our guys out of South Korea, which I don't think is a bad idea.
No.
Nope.
Why?
Well, primarily because there's an armistice, but I'm at a point whereby conventional warfare is really obsolete. We're just putting 30,000 troops in harm's way. I really do. Now that North Korea has nukes and intercontinental ballistic missiles, it's better to move our guys out of the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's practical.
That is very practical. You know, it works. And so there you have it. All right. By the way, before we leave that, Russia. We found out now who really does have the gazebos, balls in the White House.
Well,
All around it. Plate number 97.
The United States stands in absolute solidarity with Great Britain. The United States believes that Russia is responsible for the attack on 2 people in the United Kingdom using a military-grade nerve agent.
Mm-hmm.
Dozens of civilians and first responders were also exposed. Police officer Nick Bailey was the first to arrive on the scene and remains hospitalized in serious condition. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the victims of this atrocious crime.
All right, hold up. So she's talking about the nerve gas poisoning by Russia of one of their ex-agents there, and of course a police officer also was caught up in that, and so that's what she's talking about. So Theresa May came out and said, yeah, it was Russia. It was military grade. To which Donald John said, oh, we don't know. It's not been confirmed, and him and her, it could have been anybody. So Nikki Haley, who is our representative in the UN, came out and said this. You think Donald John approved that?
no.
No. Rex Tillerson said the same thing. He's out of there. Now, Nikki, girl, let me just tell you now.
Better update that resume.
You on that list. By the way, I think that Nikki Haley could very well replace him as president, to be quite frank. I do. I really do. So she went on to criticize Russia as well. Not one peep from Donald John. That's the only thing you've heard from him. And by the way, he tweeted that. Look, I just saw, he just tweeted and said it again. He just said that there's a trade deficit in Canada. Even though his own agency is saying quite the contrary.
We do have a trade deficit with Canada, as we do with almost all countries, some of them massive. PM Justin Trudeau of Canada, very nice guy, doesn't like saying that Canada has a surplus versus the U.S. negotiating. But they do. They almost all do. And that's how I know.
Well, they sent the guys out. The guy did come back and say something about $17 billion a year because it did not. The trade deficit did not include energy and timber,
Or timber. Huh.
which is one can debate. However, tell that to our trade representative who said even with that, even with timber, $17 billion, it's still the no trade deficit. So now, look, who do you argue with? You and you? And then there's the lawsuit against the dog network. I call it Fox, the dog network, and Hannity Boy. Let me tell you, I don't know how you guys, I know you guys listen to me and you listen to these folks, but listen to me. How many lies that these guys have to tell? I mean, from Benghazi to Morris to, I mean, it goes on and on. And remember the guy that trumped up, supposedly, the Delta Force guy that was trumped up to be at Benghazi, found out quite the contrary. I mean, it goes over and over and over and again. You know, and Clinton goes before the committee on Benghazi, and you find out that one of the Republican congressmen said, I try to keep it in the news just to put dirt on her. And I mean, you know, you find something, you find something.
Yeah.
It goes on and on. So Hannity Boy comes out here with this conspiracy suggesting that a DNC staffer, Seth Rich, was the one who came out, who leaked all the information to the Russians and blah, 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 blah. Another big lie, another big phony lie. I had someone even call me about, what about this Self? What about Self, Rip? You guys got to understand that they are part of the machine. They are part of the political manipulation strategies, PMMS, political media manipulation strategies. The Russian Limbaba is all part of this. What is it about? It's protecting their wealth, their money.
What, who's
And the guys who pay them.
Who, the commentators?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Trust me on this. This is something I know quite well. So when you don't, it's nothing. It's okay to be entertained by it, but understand that their whole thing is to indoctrinate. Every one of these guys is got to be there. You got to be on the same page, and this is what we're going to do. I guarantee you, they won't even touch anything that's happening with the sordid details of Stormy, or any of the, not only that stuff. They're not going to touch any of the lies that Donald Trump said, even Tillerson.
Right.
Before they were defending Tillerson, when Tillerson came in, and it was like, and he said, well, look, I don't represent America, and I represent my company, blah, 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 blah. But boy, once you fall out, let me just tell you, these guys, honestly, conservatives eat their young. Just ask Steele or ask Colin Powell.
And they're old.
I'm just saying. Ask the mooch. So now here's the Hannity boy coming out to say, well, he came out earlier and said, well, he's gonna refrain from talking about it for the sake of the family.
Yeah, the family came out and said, hey, you need to shut up.
And after the fact, it was determined that this guy had nothing whatsoever to do with the Russians. But that was, listen to me, he pulled the old McDaniels,
You wouldn't shake their hand?
Oh, no. What he did was, let's come up with a story and see if we can prove it. We're going to now mislead individuals and offer some fake news and then see everybody else is fake. And it was fake. Hang on, quick break. We'll be back.
It's about that time to get away. Make your reservations, pack your bags, and head on down to the coast, the Almanac Hotel and Bistro. Live music, entertainment, special events, and delicious, mouth-watering Cajun Creole cuisine. The Almanac Hotel and Bistro. Celebrate with special events, wedding receptions, rehearsal dinners, banquets, family reunions, office parties, high-end, intimate, and affordable. The Almanac Hotel and Bistro is the #1 spot for Jackson residents with all